How's it going? I'm gonna move the mic so that. Ooh. All right. How we doing on audio levels in the back? Outstanding. Yeah. Thanks for coming. I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm a giant SOC nerd. I've been doing SOC stuff one way or another for a really long time. I've inhabited almost every persona in the SOC. I'll tell you a little about it in a minute. I come from Microsoft, from the Seattle area, actually. Anybody from the P&W here today, by any chance? Yeah. West Coast, Best Coast. That's what's up. We can all agree on that, right? Yeah, that's right. I'm an East Coast native, West Coast, Best Coast. At Microsoft, I run the solutions architecture team in the cyber defense organization. That's a Microsoft way of saying I am the architect of Microsoft's SOC. I mean, you're probably going to then ask yourselves, oh, did you design it? No, I've been in role for 6 weeks. Give me a year or two. But I'm not speaking on behalf of my employer today. I did write a book on some of this stuff. MITRE.org, WAC 11 Strategies is where you can get it. For the love of God, don't pay for it. It's free. You can go on Amazon and download it. There's like the Kindle version is like 99 cents. I don't see a dime of that. Why? It's free by design. I'll be using some of that information today. It's been licensed back to me by MITRE for free. Thank you, MITRE, for funding the work. Every SOC is a snowflake. They're all shaped in different ways. They all have different functions and services. Their org charts, how they're structured, every single one is different. Some insource completely, some outsource partially. Some companies totally outsource. I've seen them come in sizes ranging from one person or a couple people working half-time to organizations of over 500 people. And among all of these, I've never met a SOC that felt like they were not in the middle of major struggle. Didn't matter how new or old they were. Didn't matter how well resourced they were. They always felt like they had major struggle. And over this period of time, doing it myself, again, I've worked in these areas so long, the trends reveal themselves. And in this talk today, I'm going to reveal to you some of the trends that I've seen. And to get right to it, it is based around the concept that in my experience, in my opinion, and of literally almost everyone I've ever talked to about this subject, that the SOC is atomic. And I'll explain what that means. There are about 6 here in the front here for those of you who are super adventurous and want to see me up close, and about 4 right here. I'm going to explain to you from my perspective what needs to go in the SOC, what doesn't, and what might. But then I'm going to really blow up the problem of where do people blow it? Where do they blow it? What do they get wrong? And how to fix it? But you're probably asking why? What is our motivation here? For those of you who have never seen this is the OODA loop. We've probably all seen the OODA loop before. Observe, orient, decide, act. Our job in the SOC is to turn this loop as fast as we can and to do it as well as we can. Understanding we're in competition with the adversary. I could use a lot of cliches right now. I'm not gonna. We need in the SOC to practice continual improvement. Again, cliches, it goes across that mission. Not just detection and response or analytic tradecraft. When you think about how do we bring all these people together so they're acting as one? Because when they don't act as one, we get into trouble. And so many SOCs I run into don't do that. So you're probably thinking, oh, this sounds obvious, Carson. Trust me, most people blow it. I'll show you how in just a few minutes. We need to achieve economy of force. Everyone is screaming at us, we're not going to hire more people to churn more alerts. We need to do it faster and better. Yeah, I got it. And at the same time, nobody wants to be stuck in the same role in these organizations for a long period of time, particularly those of us, myself included, who have at some point in our career done alert triage. We don't call it tier 1 anymore, by the way. I might use the term tier 1 at some point. We really don't want to say that. I'll explain why in a little bit. So let's talk about it. What goes in the SOC? Again, here's a cartoon. Your SOC doesn't look like this. That's okay. This is a cartoon. What goes in the SOC? First set of stuff is under the theme of triage, analysis, and response. The people who are looking at the alerts, the people who are investigating, the people doing the coordinating the incidents, the people who are doing containment and eviction. Now, you're probably saying, we don't have triage, we've outsourced that. Like, okay, cool, peace, dude, but like, work with me here for a moment. Eventually, someone in your SOC is going to look at signal that someone else is sending you and then do something with it. I'm going to call that triage for the moment. Somebody's got to do it. The next set of stuff, I'm going to call out hunt, detection, creation, and kind of anything around the intel cycle that's focused on cyber. Consuming it, fusing it, creating it, reporting it, etc. And next, and I'm going to go do a whole expose on this, so just bear with me, are tools, admin, and architecture. Those tools that support the SOC. It's data platform, it's detection capabilities, it's EDRs, it's XDRs, it's SOARs, whatever. And then finally, some of these pieces over here about portraying the SOC situational awareness about what's going on in the enterprise, about the adversary, about its threats, etc. Communicating that out, and of course, training the SOC itself. The thesis of my argument is that these pieces are atomic, and every single time, without a single exception ever, when I've seen people don't do this, they blow it. Every single time, not a single exception ever. Now, there's a bunch of asterisks around outsourcing. I get it. I'm not going to talk about outsourcing a lot. It's imperfect. But generally, the further you stray from this, the more trouble you're going to have. Now, at this point, when I talk about SOCs, and I do a much longer presentation that goes along with the book and a bunch of other stuff, somebody always asks, okay, well, what about firewalls? Cool, let's talk about that. In the olden days, it's less important today because like now in enterprises, like you're in cloud, you've got virtual firewalls, whatever. Could firewall management go in the SOC? Yeah, it could. I'm not hard on or against it. Vulnerability scanning, I've seen it work either way. Vulnerability scanning is one of the ways for the SOC to tell the truth. PCERT. I often see the PCERT capability and think about being able to understand security, being able to look through the incident lifecycle, mobilize communications, mobilize partners. There's a lot of parallels to what the SOC does. Sometimes I've seen it done in SOC, sometimes I haven't. It's okay either way. Asset inventory. This is like the sexiest part of security, right? Asset inventory. Who thinks asset inventory is really sexy? There's always like 3 people in the audience. Okay, I think it's sexy too. I'm with you. Let's talk. When I say asset inventory, I mean there's no one thing in the enterprise that says what all of your stuff is. It's not just Entra, it's not just your phone scanners, it's not just your EDR. There's no one source of truth by itself. You have to bring that data together in a way that matches your bespoke environment. That's composite asset inventory. Some SOCs have it, and they generally prosper really well when they do. Anti-fraud and anti-abuse. Any of you have capabilities out in the cloud, and anything you're offering the public a capability, a lot of the ways you detect that, you think about that, the data sources, the analysis, the looking for evil. It's very SOC-like in a lot of ways. I've done this. There's like 90% overlap in a lot of ways, but it can pull you in another direction. You have to be very thoughtful about that. You can smear your entire SOC. If it's a boring day, like a Friday at 4 o'clock, all incidents happen at 4 o'clock on a Friday, right? Yeah, that's right. We all know it. All right, let's say it's a quiet day in a SOC. As soon as I say quiet, by the way, it's not going to be quiet. I just used the Q word. We're all screwed. Sorry. They're going to go off and they're going to be like, oh, fraud and abuse is going to be this shiny object syndrome. And they're gone. Because they're like, look at all this ponage over here. Look at all this misuse that's happening in our services. Look at all these people who are breaking terms of service because they're really good at it. So just be thoughtful of that. Be thoughtful of that. Pen testing, vuln assessment, red teaming. Yeah, I know they're not all the same thing. I mean, some of you are like, no, Carson, pen testing is not the same thing as red teaming. Cool, whatever. I'm just going to put it all together for a moment. Bear with me. This is a way for the SOC to tell the truth. I've seen a lot of red teams attached like right next to a SOC. One of the best ways I hear people in red teaming talking about what they do is we make the SOC better. Cool. And then owning and driving the PIR program. What do I say when I say PIR? I mean those things after the incident that you accumulate over the course of the incident. Everything that went wrong, everything that sucked, all the vulnerabilities, all the things that were broken that led to the incident happening, and all the things that during the incident were suboptimal. The SOC, during its incident life cycle, should be accumulating these like a pile of slop. And then at the end of that experience, they should be curating that slop into something someone goes and does something about, in theory. The high priority stuff on a good day when the sun is shining. Right. A lot of SOCs, they should have that capability internally or side saddled to them. So all worth the chat. Now, I also want to warn you. So I enjoy giving this talk in the United States. I'm going to talk about Cheesecake Factory for a second. I will warn you, if you go and read 11 Strategies, section .2, you're going to see a Cheesecake Factory menu of all the things a SOC could do. Now, what happens when you go to Cheesecake Factory and you eat everything on the menu? How are you going to feel? Like crap, right? So don't do that, right? There's going to be things on the menu you should not be doing. Let's talk more about what you shouldn't be doing. The rest of this stuff. This is a nice visual, by the way. I really like using this when I do a class on cyber, all the different branches of cyber. I've seen a lot of executives come in and say, we have something that is security, and then it's operations. So we're going to put it in the security operations center. Wrong answer. So things I've seen people try and cram into the SOC that generally don't work. Patch management of stuff that is not the SOC systems. IT management of things that are not the SOC systems. General, like GRC, policy, etc. Security engineering, AppSec, and then finally identity management. Generally speaking, these are things that are not associated with finding and running after bad people in cyberspace. So don't put it here because it distracts the SOC from doing what they need to do. Again, you're probably like, I know this, Carson, but everybody screws this up at some point. So here it is on a slide because so many times, somebody needs to say it. So I'm saying it. So how do we screw this up? I'm going to show you 4 ways people screw this up big time. Number 1, let's talk about engineering. So I'm going to show you a chart. On the left-hand side of this chart is the anti-patterns, and on the right-hand side, it's going to be the patterns. I'm going to build this out. You'll see when it's done. So let's start with this. When engineering is not in the SOC, what happens? It's us versus them. Put another way, I heard someone once say, all SOCs have engineering in them. The only difference is whether you acknowledge it and fund it or not. Think about that for a moment. All SOCs have engineering in them, and the only question is whether you acknowledge it and you support it or the way you screw them. And that's the way it works out. When you don't, generally speaking, you have requirements and solutions being thrown over a brick wall. The further the engineering organization is from the SOC, the more severe this pattern is, the taller the wall and the wider the moat. You get tools forced on operations. What will happen is that the engineers, often this far-flung organization, will grow their own brains, so to speak, and they'll be like, yeah, the SOC really needs this thing over here. And that may or may not be true, but oftentimes it isn't. And I'm not saying they're not smart people. I'm not saying they don't mean well. I'm saying that's generally how it works out. And then as a result, as I stated before, the operators become cowboys. And they beg, borrow, and steal for what they need, rather than having a budget. And then finally, we need to think about balancing risk. The slide is done if you want to take a picture. So my first message to you is bring your engineers close to the SOC. Now, I'm also going to break down the rationale people often use for not doing that. And I'm going to do my best to support this argument, but I confess some of it's a straw man argument. The first is the engineer's focus. I strongly agree with the sentiment. One of the major problems that happens the closer your engineers get to the SOC is they run from incident to incident like the rest of the SOC is. Like, oh, we need a detection right now. Oh, we need a new telemetry like right now. I got it. It happens. You need to be able to support some of that resourcing, but you also need to cordon off some of that, and you need to be very deliberate about your resource planning. The next one is they should be in an engineering org. And the problem with it is that generally they fall out of touch. You don't have people talking to people. If there are not engineers talking to analysts every day, you have a problem. Every day. And I know this. I literally wrote the book on this shit twice. And I'm not joking. And when I was in an engineering role previously, I talked to one of my investigations leads at least once a week because I couldn't get in his mind. And there was stuff he knew about the mission that I didn't. And I literally wrote the book on this shit. So if I can't do it, I guarantee you that engineers who haven't done this for 20 years of their lives can. The engineer should have strategic sense of the SOC's need. I strongly agree with this. Proximity is important, but again, being thoughtful about how we allocate the resourcing. Conflict of interest, I've never gotten that one. I'm not even going to bother trying to explain it. Detection is an engineering function. Who has detection in their engineering shop? One person. I'm sorry. Now, are there detections today that we're going to need some no-kidding devs to work on, like some no-kidding ML nerds to work on? Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. However, there's also going to be detections that we need to write in response to an incident that we need to turn around in an hour or so. So the question is, what is the approach you're going to take to have both dev nerds who are really smart about stuff that might not be security, who are brought together with the people who are? And sometimes they're the same person. That's happening more and more, but those can be unicorns. There's different constructs. I've talked about them in other presentations. The concept is detection V-team. We're actually forming a V-team and a rhythm of business around bringing these different people together. And then finally, ops just does ops. My God, what a wonderful way of thinking about things. I would argue, as I've said in so many presentations, and I'll do again in just a little minute, everyone should have the chance to improve. Now, mistake number 2. Excluding hunt and threat intel. This can be absolutely toxic, so let's break down the anti-patterns and the patterns. The first one is, oh, I've gone to the hunting team. I'm better than you are. I don't have to do shift work anymore. Anybody heard that before? Yeah, a couple people, right? Bullshit. Everyone should be in an ops rotation of some sort or another. It's applicable to almost any role in the SOC, not just the people who are in triage, not just the people who are in investigations or incident coordination or the engineering team or threat intel or hunting. They all have an ops rotation approach one way or another and roles to fill. So let's not exempt them and let people feel like they're a higher form of life. The next one is we only do advanced work. Come on, man. Everybody needs to take out the trash. They're just tier 1. Stop calling them tiers. That's a very quick way of being non-inclusive. One of the major reasons why you need to have this capability inside the SOC is to give people a career path. A lot of people in the SOC are motivated by finding the next midnight this or typhoon that. So let's support that and build that into our career progression. Oftentimes, when the hunting or threat intel capability is not in the SOC, I hear someone say this: what the heck are they doing? On both sides of the equation. No good. And then finally, the sense that tools and processes get static. They should be constantly improving. So my message to you in the second item is that everyone needs to feel like they are in the fight. And everyone should have the opportunity to do cool stuff. And what's cool for different people is different things. One of the major differences I see is that hunting, people are like, hunting's a different skill set. Bullshit. It's not, for the most part. What we do in hunting and we do in threat intel, we're using a lot of data to make smart decisions about how to orient the SOC, find bad guys, and go faster. The degree to which we are awesome at doing that is another story. So instead of focusing on our differences, let's focus on rallying around the deliverables and what we need to put together. No one should feel above each other, and then there should not be any kind of single point of failure. I'm going to keep going. So what's cool? I've talked to a lot of different pieces in SOCs, and actually one of the things I really liked from the keynote, and I strongly affirm, is you don't necessarily have to have a CS or engineering degree to be awesome at this stuff. 100%. As a matter of fact, some of the people I work with who are the most awesome don't have degrees, have their degrees in stuff that is related, right? Psychology, for example, or art. I've seen it. Communications. My God, we need communicators, right? So some people are indeed looking for the nation states. Some people there are really interested and energized about being nerds about bit twiddling. Some people are here to do a lot of ML. I have to say AI at least once in a presentation, or the year isn't 2025, so I just did. Some people are there to learn cyber. I love it when I see people switch it between red and blue. It's super cool seeing people switch it. What a fresh mindset. Some people are to be awesome managers. Yes, I'm a manager too. I'm sorry, I had my manager lobotomy again about a month ago. I guess I can't write queries anymore. That's a lie. I did one this week. Number 3, excluding truth-telling. This is an interesting one. What do I mean by truth-telling? So one of the things I've noticed is that, in fact, one of the things that's the coolest thing I think about working in the SOC is the SOC is so good about finding bad stuff. It's literally falling off the back of the truck of everything we do every day. Every good hunt, when we prove or disprove the presence of an adversary in a network using data, will fall off the back of the truck 10 bad things we found along the way that is potentially unrelated to our hypothesis. So my point in number 3 here is that you need to embrace that truth-telling role into the SOC organizationally and in the rhythm of business. There's lots of different ways to do it. Here are the ways that I have seen. Vulnerability scanning, this one is an obvious one. Asset inventory, we've talked about this. Post-incident response, speak truth about what went wrong in that incident. How did we as the SOC fail? How was our enterprise screwed up? How did we not get the coordination and cooperation we did? Red and purple team, I love purple teaming. Lots of great presentations on it. Hunting, talked about that. Threat intel, these are all the different mechanisms the SOC uses to collect, organize, and share back out the truth of what it sees in the enterprise. Embrace it. And then the 4th, and this is a big one, and I talked about this in my talk. You can find it on YouTube, How to Save Your SOC from Stagnation, that I delivered in 2023. Creating capacity for only incidents. This is a big problem I see is that like everyone says, oh, we should get better, but they're not building rhythm of business and capacity and accountability around it. So what does that look like? That can look like anything you're doing that you're measuring and building structure around that is not the incident funnel. And I would actually argue is in so many ways as important, because if you're not doing it, you're stagnating. If you're stagnating, you're failing and people are leaving. So my message to you today in this 4th mistake is build at least 20%, ideally 50% or more of capacity in your SOC to be available for non-incident work, improving your SOPs and processes, doing tool and automation work, hunt and exploration, etc. This enables your SOC to have surge capacity for when the incident does happen. So rather than having that in a separate organization, build it in, and those people are already ready to go rather than having to scramble and pull in other heroes from elsewhere. So this is important to both your improvement and your retention and progression for those people. So I'm going to build this one out. So in that talk, I feature 2 of the 7 flow charts there. I talked about detection V team and I talked about investigation improvements. I'll talk about the second one here. When investigations are done from a major incident, one of the best ways I like to do to support continual growthing and training in the SOC, because we all know we don't have $50,000 to spend on every person in the SOC to send them to 10 SANS courses every year. The quick and easy and lightweight way to do that is after the incident is over, have the people who were doing the investigation show how they did it. If you are complex enough, and I guarantee you are, there's something one analyst knows that another one doesn't around a data source or a TTP or a query. Like you could literally spend 2 hours talking about joins, left joins, right joins, inner joins, outer joins, semi joins, left ani joins, blah, blah, blah. Like literally 2 hours talking just about how you use different joins to fuse different data together in an incident. And this is helpful because I can't keep all the joins straight in my head, and God knows they don't always correlate back to ANSI SQL. I digress. So the point is that in this post-incident situation, You have people, there doesn't have to be PowerPoint. It doesn't have to be a bunch of stuff. Like literally just show me all the things you just ran. Talk me through it. It's an enormous opportunity to have team building inside the SOC and learn, and it's basically free. It's basically free. So let's wrap up. If my message today is you need to enable growth in every function, team, and role in the SOC. And I know this sounds cliched and I know this sounds obvious, but so often we don't do it. So we're talking about capacity. And number two, we need to conduct every function in the SOC on a closed loop. And that means, for example, in detection land, the people who write the detections need to experience the consequences of the decisions they've made and the detections they've written. Did that detection they wrote yesterday just create 10,000 alerts today or not? And am I able to cope with that? Most people aren't, by the way. That's an example of a closed loop. So we want to keep engineering, threat intel, and hunt either in the SOC or immediately adjacent to it. And if it's just adjacent to it, guess what? It's the SOC anyways, my opinion. Everyone should be in an ops rotation. Everyone needs to feel like they're in the fight. Nurture a culture of speaking truth to power. And you need to build capacity for continual improvement. Treat that role in the SOC as a first-class citizen. So in conclusion, I would tell you, we need one SOC, the whole SOC, nothing but the SOC, so help me. Thank you. It's question time.
Everyone, we do take a lot of questions over Slido for this. We are in Theater 7. Feel free to put your questions through there. If you're having trouble with Slido or just want to ask a question directly, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic over.
Do we have any online? Not yet. Do we have any hands in the room? Oh, there.
You mentioned atomicity earlier, and you said you had those pillars listed in one of the first slides.
Yep. I'll pull it up.
Do you mean atomic within each pillar or across each pillar?
So we are streaming this. I'm going to try and repeat that question. Please correct me if I get it wrong. You're asking about atomicity between these pillars on this slide being displayed now.
Yeah, I'm using the term atomic as a shorthand to basically say, look, the stuff in the blue boxes needs to be in the SOC. And in that regard, I consider these pieces together atomic. Like, yeah, you can blow up atoms. I get it. But the point is that whenever I see people have these functions existent in an enterprise and they're not in the SOC, trouble ensues. That's my point. Right here.
Thank you. If one is in a context where, say, you're the security expert and everyone around you are kind of like core engineers, and they do not see kind of like the big picture of having a SOC or investing in detection engineering or threat hunting and stuff like that, and you're caught in between kind of like focusing on the other things or convincing them that this is something kind of like that needs to be invested in, or wait for something bad to happen, right? Like, what would you say to someone in such a scenario, and how to approach it? Is it like, are there some strategic ways to demonstrate the need, or, just kind of wait for something? You know what I mean?
Yes. So I've actually inhabited this role before. In one of the jobs I've had in the past, I would literally go into rooms full of devs and service engineers, et cetera. And I would say, the first thing I would say is, hi, I'm from security and I'm here to help. And that usually got a couple laughs. And if that didn't work, I'd usually say, we're not happy until you're unhappy. There you go. So the general vehicle that I use and that I see most people use is that when you're talking about security, you're not talking about security anymore. You're talking about their mission, their business, in what matters to them. And so what matters to them is they need to drive down the risk. And I know actually Adam Showstack last week did a lovely keynote on don't use the word risk anymore at BSides Seattle. Catch it if you can. So maybe you don't use the risk, but the point I'm driving at is You're talking about implications to the business in terms that matter to them. So talking about it in terms of brand value and customer trust and uptime and revenue and that kind of stuff, because that's what matters. So I'll give you another example of a way that really helps. Red teams. The purpose of a red team is not to get domain admin. You're probably thinking like, Carson, he's lost his goddamn mind. Just hear me out for a second. The purpose of the red team, particularly in any company that faces the public and has public-facing like cloud services, is to validate that we, the company, are upholding the promises we've made to the customer about the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the services in their data. So the red team there is not to get domain admin. They're there to stress test our ability to keep those promises to the customer. And when you reframe the argument around that, instantly the executives pay attention, the business owners pay attention. Great question. There's no magic here. Thank you. Other questions?
Fantastic answer. We got a couple questions lined up. I need to make a quick announcement. Lunch is starting upstairs right now. It will be going on till 1:30. Feel free to depart. We will continue taking Q&A for a while. We got the room for a bit longer. And on to the next question.
Great insights. Enjoyed your talk. And your last tagline was "So help me." So if you fast forward yourself 5 years from now, what's your advice to some of the upcoming vendors or players where you think there is that help me opportunity for some of the vendors? Yeah. So.
And when the organizations you're referring to in this context, are you thinking of like up and coming security product companies?
Yes.
Okay, so like imagine the next XDR kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Spot on. I have a couple pieces of advice. I am never going to stand on a podium or in a meeting or otherwise say that an entire security product company needs to be full of security nerds. However, user empathy is critical. User empathy is critical. And what I have observed is that being asked to or being forced to sit in the role in a SOC and deal with alert triage for weeks on end, or deal with incident coordination with lots of angry people who just want you to go away, etc., are transformative experiences. And until you've sat in that chair and had the snot beaten out of you, to be frank, I can explain it to you, and intellectually you can understand me, but there's a change in how you think and how you approach problems when you are forced to operate in those roles. So my point is in any security company that's making products for organizations like SOCs or otherwise, empathy is critical, and you must have people who have that experience and are able to translate that empathy to how you approach design, implementation, customer feedback, product improvements, etc. Mm-hmm. Great question. Right down in the front, I think.
Right, thank you. While I get over there, there's a quick question from Slido. Anonymous asks, in one slide you said nope with regard to security engineering in the SOC, but later you listed it as necessary. Can you clarify?
Restate the question. I want to make sure I do a good job of answering it.
In one slide you said nope in regard to security engineering in SOC.
I know what the problem is. Yep, that was my fault. Sorry about that. Hang on a second. Okay. When I said security engineering here, I was referring to the function whereby people do things like AppSec and threat modeling and working with you as a random service owner to correctly architect and implement your service in a secure and resilient manner. That is different than the people who are doing things like running the XDR platform, building detection analytics, etc. I apologize for the confusion.
Do you have any thoughts around taxonomy for documentation?
Taxonomy for documentation.
So the people that don't totally understand, if you have good people doing good things, you can't just expect that you can apply some MCP or some searchy thing to all of your documentation and be able to surface all of the important things in a very quick and orderly way, and especially trying to bring on new people and also allow people to transition and grow and all these things is providing documentation in a way that's meaningful. And so then you always get back to taxonomy. And so then do you have any thoughts on how taxonomy should be applied to documentation for SOCs?
Great question. I've never seen a good solution to this, only variations of not so great. And that's why I was laughing and why I think a lot of other people were laughing. Documentation. Sorry, I'm having feelings right now. This is a good question. There are a couple things I think about. The first is, in some SOCs, people are like, oh, we have one tech writer, and the tech writer's job is to write all the SOPs. I'm going to call BS on that one, because ultimately, it's everyone in the SOC who's experiencing the processes is in a position to do a job of improving those processes. And so it's an expectation I would set on everybody. As a matter of fact, you can go so far as to say you have a set of new employee orientation documentation, and the new analyst must go through all the NEO documentation, and anything that's broken, like broken links or anything that's out of date, guess their job is to update the NEO page. So the first component is making sure this is democratized. So this makes sure the answer to your problem even worse, right? Because everyone's updating it. There's a couple ways. My default answer is, I hope your search bar works really well. I'm sorry. What I've seen people do is use either any kind of structured semantic wiki or specific keyword callouts and dating and versioning. And then with all this LLM stuff now afforded to us, potentially being able to dump all of that stuff into a RAG. And have the LLM start spitting answers out to you. They may not be perfect, but they may help someone get faster and get the link faster. That's a tough one.
I got one question here. We'll get yours. We're going to need to cut it off after these next questions. I sadly need to let the rest of the volunteers get their lunch breaks in. But for questions past that, you can find our speakers upstairs and in some of the social events around the conference.
Thank you so much, Carson. How would you articulate the difference between SOC, the Security Operations Center, and SecOps, just security operations in general? Like, what's the difference of responsibilities?
So, and when you were referring to SecOps in that context, I think you were probably referring to like DevSecOps.
No, I mean SecOps. Like, even just here you say security operation, but then you have Security Operations Center. And I've seen organizations who have like the SOC, but then they also have like SecOps, who like, and inside the SecOps they have the SOC.
Yeah.
Just like in this picture.
Yeah. I hate parsing words out really hard. First of all, I am never going to say in the modern day and age, the year's 2025, that you have to have a physical place. Like, we all went through COVID. You don't have to actually be there. Lots of hybrid work at home, blah, blah, blah. All right, so that's the first part. The line I'm generally drawing is the people who are principally involved in participating in the incident funnel are the functions that directly support it. So detect, investigate, respond, recover, inclusive of coordination and tooling and hunting. So those are like the nearby pieces. That's what I'm putting inside this bubble I call the SOC, and the rest is other stuff. And I went, and in the slide where I talked about
So like incident response, investigations, detection engineers, all of this is outside of the SOC.
I understand what you're saying. There's different ways to structure it, right? So your ops hub or your ops center might be like their inner ring, and then maybe like your engineering and your detection and your hunt and some other pieces like this, your outer ring. That's one way to do it, right? That's why I said every SOC is a snowflake. So it's an interesting philosophical question. I think we have time for one more, or are we done? All right, one more then.
I can just ask it, I guess.
All right, yep.
First of all, thank you for being here, and thank you for the book. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it for everybody. I have a problem. The problem that I'm facing is like there is like so much good information in this book, right? But for me it's like overwhelming. Where should I start? So if you have like one advice how to not get burned out or where to start from, what it would be?
Well, you're in luck because I actually am going to be giving a talk on how to avoid burnout at First in Copenhagen in June. So watch that talk on how to avoid burnout. But that's not the question you asked. There's a couple ways to approach it. The first one is at the beginning. If you're new to SOCs, do chapter 0 and then skip to the part that's important to you. We did build 11 strategies to be consumed linearly because we're like, how do you linearize this bizarro topic? So you can do it to cover. The other way to approach it is Catherine and Ingrid and I, those are my co-authors. We did a webcast, podcast, dealio through Sans Blueprint, where we did like one chapter in 45 to 60 minutes or so. If you want to just zoom in on that, we get you some juicy stuff, some fun commentary. That actually is kind of like the book plus in each part of that. That's another way you can consume it. Yep.
Fair, so just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, sure. All right, folks, thanks for coming. Thank you for staying so late.